ham and melted pepper jack cheese, piled high with our signature pickle fries. It's crunchy, spicy, and smoky as well. And if you need to warm up, how about some Smokehouse chili? It's not your average recipe. It's loaded with our famous chopped burnt ends and savory sausage. And don't forget carryout, which you can order at SmokehouseBBQ.com. Visit Smokehouse BBQ at Independence, Zona Rosa, and Gladstone. It's Smokehouse BBQ.
Go to 965thefan.com for your chance to win an X-Family instant ticket, plus a shot at winning 4 Diamond Club seats to the K, all powered by the Kansas Lottery. Listen between 2 and 6 on Monday, March 9th and Tuesday, March 10th for your chance to qualify for the Drives Papa Shot Tournament. 96.5 The Fan, KFNC FM and AM, HD1 and HD2, Kansas City, in Odyssey Sports Station.
Let's head to the phone lines right now to be joined by Joshua Brisco, who covers the Kansas City Chiefs. He does pre- and post-game for the Chiefs Radio Network. Brisco, it's been a while, man. How have you been?
Not too bad. I was just telling Rob, though, we got seasonal allergies in my house on February 28th this year. So I have been under the weather since before we got to even, enjoy some springtime weather. All that then just to kick off the biggest week of the offseason here an extra few days early. So I'm glad to have something to talk to you guys about. Happy to be on with you, and a little sad to be saying goodbye to Trent McDuffie.
Absolutely. So let's start with this. My stance on this is this was a win-win-win for everybody. I like the trade for Kansas City. I like what it gives them. It gives them more ammunition heading into the draft. They now have the 4th most selections of any team in the NFL when it comes to the draft. It gives them cap flexibility. So I like that from their perspective. I like the trade for Los Angeles. They're all in trying to win a Super Bowl. They had 2 first-round picks, so maybe they're willing to overspend just a little bit to go get a very talented player. You have to like this move for McDuffie. He gets to go back home, and he also is going to be one of the 3 highest-paid corners in the National Football League. Sometimes everybody can equally win in a trade. That's what I think happened here.
I agree with you on that. Now, the Chiefs side of it is the side that hurts more because you know Trent McDuffie. That's why my first reaction yesterday was just to be a little bit personally conflicted. Not conflicted on if it's a good price for McDuffie. I think it is. I think you're right that everyone in this factor does get what they wanted out of this offseason by and large. Not that McDuffie was asking for a trade by any means, but he gets the payday, we assume, and he gets to go play for the one team I've seen him ever talk about playing for who's not the Kansas City Chiefs. From my side, it just stinks. That's a part of the business where it stinks to have a player that comes in, is not only meeting his level as the 21st overall pick and the highest draft pick that Brett Veach ever turned in, not only to come in and overachieve as a player, but to be such a weapon in the defense, to be a guy who just seemed totally beloved in the locker room and by the coaches and totally developed by Spags and Dave Merritt, who've of course developed many other corners during their time here as well. It's just a tough way to move on because you know how great Trent McDuffie is. Also, I absolutely think this is the best deal the Chiefs were getting for Trent McDuffie, and it's a very, very good one. You know, I think most Chiefs fans are kind of on board now at this point, so this might be kind of preaching to the choir, but the Sauce Gardner trade was an outlier for 2 big reasons. One being the contract that he had just gotten from the Jets that lowered the cash necessity from the Colts, and then also the league's just always, since the draft, they've always viewed Sauce Gardner as a slightly higher caliber player than Trent McDuffie, even though McDuffie, particularly in the slot, is as good of a defensive back as there is in football. That particular role, he's just about perfect for that. Now, if he wants to play outside more and the Rams are going to let him keep doing that, McDuffie's 2025 was a slight step back because he did kind of get partitioned out to the outside for so much of the year. If that was by his choice, by the Chiefs' choice, whatever, all to the wayside at this point. It's a long way of saying I do agree with your synopsis there. Everybody wins. It's just a tough day to say goodbye for Chiefs fans because you know who Trent McDuffie is. The Rams are getting the known quantity, but the Chiefs are getting very, very good value in terms of a lot of pieces. Not just 29 and not just the future third, but even the 5th and 6th this year that just lets them have a few more bites at the apple later in the draft or a little more ammunition to maneuver in that 3rd and 4th round range. It really makes sense for all parties involved, even though it stings.
Yeah, this is the Chiefs, to me, continuing to take the gamble that their scheme and their system is paramount. That we can lose L'Jarius Sneed, we can lose Charvarius Ward, we can lose Trent McDuffie, and the beat goes on. Like, there's no one man bigger than the system, so to speak. I mean, they have a significant question when it comes to their secondary. They're not going to have Jalen Watson. At least right now, he is a free agent, so he could walk away. Brian Cook is also a free agent. He could walk away. Trent McDuffie has been traded away. Like, they really got to get to work with their secondary and lost maybe their most valuable asset this side of Patrick Mahomes. This is a really big gamble, on Veach, his drafting and his scouting department. This is also a really big gamble when we're talking about their scheme on defense as well.
Dave Merritt should have a clause in his contract where he gets an extra like $250,000 every time they trade away a starting corner, because that is also who it's relying upon. It's all of those guys and all of those moving parts. And this year, to your point, I have to think now that there's probably more money available for Brian Cook. If they wanted Jalen Watson, signing Jalen Watson last offseason would have really been the time to do it. Obviously, it would have been a fine time to do it with Cook as well. But I think last year, Brian Cook, from what we heard Spags talk about, and even hearing from guys like Nate Taylor, who are just around every day, it seems like Brian Cook really earned a lot of trust last year, or at least continued to evolve in a big way last year, where right now, if he's back as one of your communicators in the secondary, obviously Nick Bolton is the guy they always talk about having the megaphone and being the brain of the defense and all of that, but you need to have multiple guys on defense who can kind of lead from their levels. Now, they could go outside, but there's not like a Justin Reed equivalent in this year's free agent class. Frankly, I think the free agent that would make the most sense is probably Brian Cook. Noah Williams, everyone was optimistic about, I think rightfully so, but he just still has some things to prove at the NFL level. That's not me doubting. It's just the fact of where his career's at right now. And Christian Fulton gave you a couple really good games at the end of the year after not being a factor the first 15 or 16 weeks of the Chiefs season when the games actually counted. So I think there's a pretty good chance Fulton gets kept because they can't free up a ton of money by moving on. They can free up a few million, but you eat a pretty big dead cap hit if you do that. So I think there's a good chance Fulton sticks. I think you can rely on Noah Williams, but now that slot corner spot is a real big need. I like Chris Roland Wallace as well, but those are guys that you're happy to have in the mix. You can probably hear it in the tone of my voice when I say I like Chris Roland Wallace. I don't want to pencil him in for 75% of the defensive snaps next year until the Chiefs are really sure that he's ready for that role. So they have to keep investing. I don't think this really makes them a serious contender for like cornerback at 9 overall. I'd be surprised if they went corner at 29 for that matter. I don't think that they are, to your point, like I don't think they're going to trade McDuffie away and then reinvest those picks right back into the cornerback position, but it's going to be a huge task for Spags and Dave Merritt, who have successfully converted that task before. I do still think, though, there's a decent chance they bring back one of those veteran voices, but I think Cook and Watson are going to have really strong markets as well.
If Watson ends up signing a deal in Kansas City similar to the one that Carlton Davis signed with New England, he signed for 3 years, $54 million. He got $16.5 million in a signing bonus and $34.5 guaranteed. That feels fair to me. He signed that contract at 28, and Jalen Watson is 27 years old, so our age is kind of comparable, similar position. I think that's probably the market for him. Do you like that deal for Kansas City if they pull the trigger with Jalen Watson?
I think that is a fair deal. I don't know that I love it. I think it would make sense, and I would want to know the rest of the offseason plan, because here's the one part about it that gives me a little bit of pause on Watson. And not that Christian Fulton being on the team right now is a reason to not pay Jalen Watson real money, but Noah Williams is definitely an outside corner. And I think you have to assume that they want him to be a starter next year. Christian Fulton is exclusively an outside corner. Jalen Watson is an outside corner. I could see them, one name I brought up yesterday, I could see them sniffing around Marshawn Lattimore again to try to add like a veteran in there coming off of a down year where you could probably get him on one of those kind of late career mercenary deals. I think they were interested in him around the trade deadline a couple years ago. He can still play some press man outside coverage. So I think that they're probably going to be able, with the cornerback development pipeline in mind, I like Jalen Watson as a player, and if somebody gives him that deal, I will not turn up my nose at it. I'd be a little bit surprised if the Chiefs gave Jalen Watson that money, because I think it ends up undoing a little bit of the cannonball you make by just having a total overhaul in the secondary, specifically at corner this offseason, because that outside, lanky, physical cornerback build that they're also really good at identifying in the draft, that gets a little bit redundant. That's still a spot that you can have someone penciled in there with, I would say, Noah Williams, Christian Fulton, and somebody else who's brought into that mix. If it's Jalen Watson, he's playing 100% of the snaps for you next season, which is great to not wonder about. I just wonder if the Chiefs are actually going to structure it that way after letting the better but more expensive player go in McDuffie.
Right now, we're joined by Joshua Brisco of the Chiefs Radio Network on the show today. We'll play for you guys what Nate Taylor had to say coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Back to Brisco here. All right, so taking a big picture look, and I haven't had a chance to ask you this question. The Chiefs usually take a big swing on day one. Like if we look at Brett Veach and we look at day one of free agency, they are normally a mover and a shaker. All of the moves they have been making lead me to believe that on Monday, when the legal tampering period opens, we are going to have a story to react to. The Chiefs have gone out and they have done X. What do you think X could potentially be for Kansas City? What do you want X to be?
I think that we're going to see a legitimate investment. I would say the most money spent in the first day or two of free agency is probably going to be at defensive end. I don't know if they fall in love with Kwity Paye or Boye Mafe or Adafe Owe. Those are guys who are all a little bit younger. Jalen Phillips, it seems like, is going to get a lot of money too. The guys who are on the slightly younger side of free agency, I think they're probably going to pay one of those guys to make sure that you aren't just desperate that Ruben Bain is available at 9, because you can't guarantee that. I think the most fun, the flashiest signing, I do think they're about to spend money on a running back. I feel pretty good about that at this point. I think Travis Etienne makes a lot of sense, both with how the Chiefs like to play and the kind of the pocket that he falls into value-wise. Kenneth Walker is a great player. I also would have been in the Breece Hall sweepstakes if he would have made it out of New York, but ultimately, I think Etienne is a pretty hand-in-glove fit, considering, again, his play style, the explosion that the Chiefs need, and the cost on the sticker price there. Assuming that Kenneth Walker ends up leading the market at running back, I think I'd probably, I'll put this in ink later, I suppose, but I'd probably rather have Etienne at his number than Kenneth Walker at the number that he's going to end up with. So I'd say right now they will make a splash at running back. I don't think anyone at this point really thinks Jeremiah Love is terribly likely to be there at 9, and even if so, the Chiefs have other needs there as well. So I think they're going to go ahead and shore up running back early with a splash. It's going to matter in your fantasy football drafts. I also think that there needs to be a defensive end of consequence added. A defensive end who is maybe not immediately better than George Karlaftis, but better than Ashton Gelati, just to kind of set the pecking order there. And then they can still draft Ruben Bain if he's available at 9, or continue to invest in defensive end plenty throughout the draft.
Are you one to subscribe to in Veach We Trust? Like, I asked this question to Rob, and he and I were about at the same number. On a scale from 0 to 10, where is your in Veach We Trust meter right now? Because they are going to have a lot of cap space. They are going to have a lot of draft capital to be able to do what they want to do. I can't really think of a realistic move that the Chiefs will not be able to make, given the draft picks that they have and the cap space that they have. So the board is kind of open for them to really take a significant step forward. On a scale from 1 to 10, where's your confidence right now in Veach?
I'm really curious to hear where your guys' number lands. I had a number pop into my head that I feel pretty good about. I think I'm at like a 7.5, and that's because I don't know what a general manager could do to get to like a 9 for me. No general manager is so good at this really, really difficult thing of talent evaluating, market management, the contracts of it all, your player health, and then sometimes you just have draft prospects that don't pan out for whatever reason they don't pan out. So I don't think I'm on like a downswing on Veach in any particular way. It's just a huge offseason where I think he's shown you that Brett Veach has proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that he can build a championship football team around Patrick Mahomes. And having Patrick Mahomes, of course, makes that job easier. But Mahomes, Reed, and Steve Spagnuolo are kind of your 3 stabilizing factors if you're the general manager. You've got the quarterback and the mind over your offense and defense. That's a great place to be in if you're Brett Veach. He just has to be able to fill in the talent around that. He's done that very, very well with a couple of times that obviously backfired. They obviously ended up having left tackle issues 2 years ago. And then I think pretty obviously fixed that problem at the end of the first round last year by being patient and having Josh Simmons fall into their lap. I can't like judge Brett Veach on Omar Norman Lott yet, but that's a huge remaining. We're talking about second round picks like they're gold right now. we got a minute of the second round pick last season before his season was over. So again, I don't think I'm like cold on Veach or anything right now. I just think this is a huge offseason after a disappointing year. I think I have about as much faith in Veach as I would in any general manager, which is to say that 2 or 3 good drafts and you are the best team in football, 2 or 3 bad off seasons and your job is in danger. It's just, that's the margins of the sport. And I feel good about Veach being in charge here. I am extremely curious though to see where he does invest those assets that you mentioned.
Right now, we're talking to Joshua Brisco here for a few more minutes, just getting his thoughts on the offseason. We've talked Chiefs. Let's get some general NFL stuff here. The analogy that I made earlier with Buffalo is there's somebody that feels like their biological clock is winding down and they're getting really close to 40. So you just got to do something big. You know, you had all these big goals and dreams and you get on Facebook and you see all your friends are married and having kids and you look at your own life and now you feel like you got to do something to switch things up. I don't dislike DJ Moore, but I think it's clear that they overpaid for him. They overpaid for him in a draft pick compensation. And then when you start to look at the money and what they've guaranteed to DJ Moore, they made a significant investment today, as you can only read it as there is such a feeling right now of we have to win the Super Bowl. We cannot blow this with Josh Allen.
Especially when you're the guy that just had the press conference next to the owner who just told everyone that nothing is your fault and you are truly the guy in charge now. So now, to your point, the clock is ticking and you think, I gotta make sure we find somebody here at the bar before the lights come on, and we have Josh Allen, the clock ticking there in an even bigger way. Yeah, the DJ Moore thing, I like DJ Moore. If DJ Moore was a free agent addition for Buffalo, I go, oh, you know what? That's a pretty frisky add-on for a team that has to get some help for Josh Allen in the passing game. But the money, like you said, they're guaranteeing $15 million of DJ Moore's 2028 base salary. His 26 salary is fully guaranteed. His 27 salary is about to become fully guaranteed. They are taking him beyond where you want to really be investing in an NFL wide receiver. And I like DJ Moore, but that's not a risk that you're taking on a guy that has been a consistent top 5, top 10 player over the last 5 or 6 years. So I do get a whiff of desperation out of Buffalo, and frankly, I kind of don't blame them. Like, I don't think this is good business. I wouldn't sign off on this deal if I was in Buffalo, but when you do realize, like, okay, well, everyone knows that I'm the next guy on the chopping block. We're making a change at head coach. It's kind of surprising, but it's a guy that everybody here already knows, promoting from within and whatnot. And Josh Allen only has how many years of prime performance left? I don't blame them for kind of just like button mashing. I'm really surprised by how much they invested in DJ Moore, though.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised by it, too. And if you also are following the reports, it doesn't sound like they're done. I mean, there's reports that they're still interested in adding to their wide receiver room. They should. You can't just assume DJ Moore fixes everything. Romeo Doubs has also been linked to them. I could see Buffalo just being another team, just keeping with that sense of urgency. They fired their head coach, promoted their offensive coordinator. They trade for DJ Moore. They seem like a team that's just going to give out a big contract here coming up in the next 3-4 days or so.
I agree with that. And it also, it's funny because of the pivot they're making organizationally. So now again, hey, congratulations, Joe Brady. You've got Josh Allen. You've got DJ Moore. We're going to go spend real money. Let's say it's on Romeo Doubs. Now, we do have one problem. The one thing our previous head coach did pretty well was hold together a defense that did not have a lot of great investments. That was an injured defense. That was an aging defense. We talk about the need for every NFL team to constantly be churning over these rosters to stay young and like within a reasonable price range. Again, if I'm Joe Brady, if I'm Josh Allen, absolutely, let's just say, hey, it's my job to go score 35 points a week, and we're going to try to win the Super Bowl that way. But without Sean McDermott there, if you do end up having a step back on defense for a roster that, again, I just don't think has gotten nearly enough of those defensive pieces correct over these last few years, it could just be a different type of purgatory for the Bills, even if they do push all those chips in on offense, which, again, I still get. I would want to give Josh Allen every bit of help he could possibly need to see what he looks like at the absolute peak of his powers. But if you can only play on one side of the football, even if that side's working really, really well, that's going to bite you in December and January. So I think this has been true for a while, but the Bills remain one of the most fascinating stories in the NFL because we kind of know where the Chiefs are at in like this big offseason of change and the Mahomes knee injury and missing the playoffs entirely last year. again, full circle, the Bills very much feel like that clock is ringing in everyone's ears. Everyone knows that. The Bills know that, which is why they shook up so much this offseason. I don't know if all of this deck chair rearranging is going to end up being good enough, which makes it fascinating.
Couple more things here for Joshua Brisco. Maybe this is an overreaction to this, but I'm starting to think that Philadelphia is going to keep A.J. Brown, because I don't know if there is a team that wanted a wide receiver more than what Buffalo just did. And if they weren't willing to trade a first-round pick to go get A.J. Brown, I'm looking at the teams that I think would even be interested. I mean, maybe you could end up doing a pick swap. Philadelphia has 23. Maybe you end up flipping picks with somebody else. But Denver has 30. New England has 31. There's just not a wide market of teams that I think need a wide receiver and would also meet what the Eagles are trying to get for A.J. Brown.
And it's all so messy because of like how weird his contract is and how weird all of the Eagles contracts always are, how it's ended with him last year, how many weird little blips on the radar you have of him reading a book on the sidelines and all of that. I also don't know that I have been on board with being like, hey, the Chiefs just need to at least call Philadelphia and have this conversation. Just see where they're at with A.J. Brown, because you're never going to get a number one wide receiver at a bargain unless something has gone wrong. But it sounds like the Eagles are not interested in selling A.J. Brown at a bargain. Again, they're going to end up on the hook for a lot of money if he's with them or not. The one thing that I do think people forget, A.J. Brown is 28 years old. Now, he'll be 29 going in the next season. Now, we just talked about that cutoff for DJ Moore. A.J. Brown has been a better receiver than DJ Moore has been, and I think his game will age okay over those several years. But yeah, I've been a little bit surprised to see kind of the line in the sand drawn on the A.J. Brown trade rumor discussion or whatever it's been of, yeah, I know it's got to be a first and then something else. I mean, every team who wants to trade someone away says that, but I wouldn't have traded Trent McDuffie for A.J. Brown straight up.